So I just beat The Last of Us Part 2 last night, and I gotta say, guys, that game was not as bad as everyone on the internet was claiming it to be. Let's be real. Is it as good as the first game? No, obviously not. It had no real chance of being as good as the first game. The first game is like really fucking good. But everyone online, all the reviews, people talking about it, people like snapping their discs and like sending death threats to Neil Druckmann, like I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not a bad game. Like there are things I can definitely see the controversy surrounding it, but like the worst part of the game for me was just like the pacing, in my opinion. Like if they had cropped out a good 15% of the game, I feel like it would have been even better because there's definitely parts where you're like playing as Ellie or whatever, and it just goes on and on and on, and encounter after encounter after encounter, and each encounter is like 30 to 40 minutes, and you're just like, Jesus, why am I still doing this? Like that was the worst part of the game for me. Apart from that, like I like it's a solid 7 out of 10 game, which doesn't seem that good, but like I would only rate the first game like an 8.5. Like it's not really my cup of tea, that like the whole shooting zombie genre thing. So yeah, it's not on the same level as the first game, but it's not bad either. And so I guess the two main complaints I see about the game are Joel and the ending. And there will be spoilers, obviously, because it's impossible to talk about this game without mentioning the spoilers. So the first thing people complain about is Joel dying, like really early on, slash just in general him dying, and I'm like, you're surprised by that, bruh? Like as soon as you saw it was an Ellie game, you should have known. Like Joel dying was probably the most predicted thing about this game. Like I've been predicting that shit for years, and yeah, predicting it and seeing it play out, in context how they pulled it off or whatever, like it's different. But even how they did it, and I feel like a lot of the hate stems from the fact that the game got leaked, and like we're maybe just on paper these concepts seem really bad, but how they're handled in the game, like it's not that bad, in my opinion. Because the thing about Joel's death is that they fridged him, which I think is hilarious because he played the role, and it like occurred to me after the fact. I was in the shower thinking about the game, and I was just like, you know what? Joel's only purpose in this game was just to die, to motivate Ellie. And then I'm like, oh yeah, he got fridged, just like his daughter in the first game. And just like a plethora of other female characters across all other forms of media. Like that's just a cliche. They introduce a female character who gets killed to, motivate, spur on the main male lead's revenge story or whatever the fuck they're going with. And it's the same thing that they did with his daughter in the first game. They introduced this cute little 10-year-old girl, and then boom, killed her off because Joel needed a man pain or whatever. And so in this game, his role comes full circle. Like he was the one who was motivated by the fridging, and now it's his turn to be fridged. Like it's great. That's how I would have expected his role in the story to play out. So I had no issue with that. It was symbolic almost. I don't know, but it's like, and people were saying like, oh, maybe he should have died later on in the game, but his death is what causes the plot of the game. If you pushed his death to the end, what were you doing? The whole fucking story. There is no story without Joel dying. The purpose of the story is him being killed. So yeah, his death didn't, like, that wasn't like a hard not gonna buy it kind of thing. Like I predicted it. How they did it was good conceptually. People were laughing at the fact it was like a golf club or whatever, but it's like that. Come on, guys, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't know why people are holding Joel onto like such a high pedestal of like a video game character. He's just some guy. Like he's done some fucked up shit throughout his life, and it's come back to bite him. Like there's no other way to really do a sequel to The Last of Us, in my opinion, without tackling how the first game ended. The first game ended with Joel fucking over all of humanity to save one girl. And so obviously that's going to garner him, well, it's going to get him people who don't like that. He's going to acquire enemies because of his actions. And he's been acquiring enemies his whole life since the outbreak. so it seems. And so it was predictable. It's just like, well, yeah, Joel fucked over humanity, and now he's gonna have to pay the price. And now it's gonna be Ellie's turn to, have that man pain because someone that she cared about died. And that brings us to the other main issue I see about, like, people complaining about the ending, how the whole game was just Ellie's revenge, and then she didn't even get revenge. And I don't see why people are complaining about that either, because it's just the same exact plot as the first game. In the first game, the plot is Joel has to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies to get the cure, and at the last second, he's confronted with this emotional crisis, and then he backs out of it. He doesn't follow through with the delivery. He kills them all, and then there is no cure. Same thing with Ellie. She spends the whole game trying to get revenge, and then at the last second, she is confronted with an emotional crisis or a conflict, and then she doesn't go through with it. It's the same exact thing. It's like it's parallels. It's the exact same plot as the first game, only it's not appreciated for some reason. I guess because people like Joel and now he's dead, and people don't care about Abby. And I gotta be honest, I don't really give a shit about Abby either. How much you like the game kind of hinges on how much you care about Abby, and I gotta say, I don't give a shit about her. When it flipped over to her campaign, her side of the story, I was just like, oh my god, I don't want to do this. This is just so fucking annoying. Because by that point, again, like the weird pacing, a lot of the areas in Ellie's story were just kind of redundant after a certain point, so I didn't feel like we needed to go through with all of them. So then having to go back to Seattle day one, I'm like, oh my god, why are we doing this again? But by the end of Abby's campaign, I don't necessarily love her as a character, but like she's a good character. And she's the Joel of her and Lev's relationship. It's the same kind of deal. She did some fucked up shit in her past, just like how Joel did fucked up shit in his past, but then Joel connected with Ellie and then began to grow a heart. Abby did the same thing with Lev, they just gave us the same exact game. And it's funny how people praise the first one, but, hate on this sequel. But by the end, like I was saying, by the end of Abby's campaign, it was pretty traumatic having to like have the two protagonists kind of kill each other. It was like, I don't want to have Abby beat the shit out of Ellie, and I don't want to have Ellie strangle and drown Abby to death, because it's just like, this is very dark stuff. This is very grim. I was probably more emotionally involved in that final fight of Ellie drowning Abby than I was at the ending of the first game, because like you played as Abby for like 15 hours, and you got to know her. You didn't want her to be killed like that, in my experience anyway. Again, if you don't care about Abby, you won't care about this game, which is a very bold approach, I will say. Forcing us to care about the character that murdered the character everyone actually cares about. Like, so yeah, if you don't care about Abby, then you probably won't find much about this game to really like. But I thought the game was fine. Joel's death was done fine. The ending was fine. And it mirrors each other in a sense that like Joel was trying to do a good thing all throughout the first game, and then ended doing a bad thing, dooming humanity pretty much. And then he got what he wanted, a new daughter, kind of, in a sense. Whereas Abby, or Ellie, spends the whole game trying to do a purposely bad thing, murder, revenge, and then ends doing a good thing, sparing her. And she gets nothing for it. I think that's hilarious how Ellie really just gets nothing by the end of this game. She can't even play a guitar anymore. It's so sad. But yeah, those are the two main complaints that I see about this game, and I honestly don't like. I can understand them, but I don't like agree with them. Because I thought Joel's death was fine. I like in the world they live in. That's honestly the best kind of death he could have gotten in this setting, and the ending was fine. It's the same kind of depressing kind of ending that the first game gave us. And apart from that, the only other complaints I see is just, LGBTQ pandering or whatever, and it's just like that. Those aren't real issues, in my opinion. Like, oh my god, there's a lesbian as the main character, and there's a transgender character. It's like, Okay, so what? Those aren't real complaints. You're just homophobic or whatever. Um, Not that there aren't legit complaints about the game. The game's not perfect at all. The narrative is still, the writing is still kind of all over the place at certain points. Like the scenes that have Joel and Ellie, because they're the main duo. They're the ones that you care about. So the scenes with the two of them in it, they're fucking fantastic. They're like the peak of writing as far as this game is concerned. And all the other scenes, Tommy's cool, Jesse's cool. Dina is boring as shit. I'm just gonna put that out there. I didn't give a shit about Dina. The only semblance of like a personality she ever exhibited was in that flashback at the end when she was drunk at the party, and that's just her being drunk. Everyone is fun when they're drunk. Dina is bland as shit. Like I appreciate the representation. The lesbian stuff. It's good, but Dina, I don't give a shit about Dina. And Lev's a cool character. I liked him. Yeah, it's a good game overall with some writing here and there. Mainly, the highlights are the Joel and Ellie moments. Everything else, the pacing could have been a lot better. Like I said, streamline that, trim out a few areas. But yeah, overall, I had a good time with it. Like there was like I was always waiting for a moment in the game where I was just like, oh, now I know why everyone's hating on. Like, oh yeah, that ending was bad. Like I was expecting like aliens to show up or the infected to like become sentient or some nonsense. Like I was expecting some really just out of left field bullshit to justify all the hate that this game got. But that moment never came, and the ending was fine in my opinion. Like it's definitely a solid like 7 out of 10 in my opinion. It's a solid experience. It pretty much just follows the same story beats as the first game, but everyone hates it now. Like it's the same, so now it sucks. Um, Maybe the out of order, unlinear storytelling with the flashbacks. People didn't like that. I can kind of see what they're going with because you kill all of Abby's friends during Ellie's campaign. So when you go to Abby's campaign and you're introduced to these characters really for the first time, you're just like, well, you're all dead, so I don't really care about you. But at the same time, I don't know if they had done Abby's story first, nobody would have wanted to play this game. Like if you see Joel die and then you're forced to play as Abby for like the first 15 now, I would have not even bothered to play this game. So Ellie going first needed to be a thing. Even if they tried to like dream drop distance it or something and splice them together, switching back and forth between them, I don't think that would have worked either. Like this was the only real way that they could have done this plot in my opinion. Cause boy, yeah, no, that I would have hated playing as Abby first. Um, but yeah, there's definitely some iffy stuff in there to be sure. It's not a perfect experience, but neither was the first game. Let's be real. Uh, so yeah, it's a solid game. The internet's just hating on it. It's just I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, fucking 7 out of 10. Like I don't know where a third game could possibly go. Like if they make a third game about just Abby and Lev, I will not play that. But also, Joel's gone. Abby or Ellie can't even like hold a gun anymore. I would imagine like she's not going to be really that. Well, actually, it was her left hand, right? Yeah, she'll be fine then. But at the same time, I don't really see her doing much in the future. If anything, I can see like the third game going down a plot line like it's Abby and Lev. They've teamed up with the Fireflies again. They're trying to work on the cure. They've got new doctors. Maybe they are looking for other uh, immune people out there in the world, and they'll follow the same trend as the first two games where the whole game is about doing something and then at the end they don't succeed in it. Joel doesn't deliver Ellie does not get her revenge. In this game they don't find an immune person to save the world, and then at the end Ellie sacrifices herself because she still wants her life to have meaning, and she's just very suicidal and depressed because why wouldn't she be at this point. That's how I would imagine a third game to go. But again, I have no interest in playing a game about Abby and Lev. Like, Lev's cool. and Abby grew on me to an extent, but I wouldn't really invest my money in a game about them. But I mean, this game was already so hated. I don't imagine that they'll make a third one for a while. Um, but yeah, again, I thought it was a solid game. Everyone on the internet is just a bunch of haters, I guess. I don't know. See ya.